Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday morning. I hope you're awake. I have water. I had coffee earlier, but we're going to go with this. Welcome to BabyLeague's Mommy and Me Google Chat. I'm Jill. I'm going to be your moderator. Today we have got a, how do I say this, polarizing, fiery, but what I hope to be is a very, very productive and informative session for all of us. We're going to be talking about vaccinations. As you've probably seen us promoting it online. We have a great panel today. I am excited to introduce everybody. Before we get started, though, I do want to remind everyone to put your questions in the chat on the, I believe it's the right side or underneath your screen, because we want your questions. We want this to be an open forum. This is an open place, a supportive place, a place for all of us to talk about what's on our minds regarding vaccinations, no matter what side of the fence you're on. So with that, let's go ahead and introduce our panel. Yes, I'm very excited to introduce our resident pediatrician expert for the day, if you will, Dr. Marcy Hadart. How are you? And I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Hardart, yes. Hi.
Hardart. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Marcy.
Hi. So I'm a pediatrician in Santa Monica, California, 10th Street Pediatrics, and I've handled kids from the day they're born up till 18 or 20, and I have 3 kids of my own, ages 11, 14, and 15, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. You're a professional mom, ages 14. You said you have teenagers. Wow.
Yes.
My kids are only 4 and 3, so yeah, I'm kind of in the rookie stage myself. But next up, welcome. We're going to be talking about a lot of good stuff. And I also want to introduce, I am looking at our names, Erin.
Hi.
Erin and baby. How are you, Erin? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have 2 boys. My oldest is Ryan, and he is 3, and then I have Nolan, who just turned 1. So definitely in the toddler stage, and they keep me going, and they keep me on my feet for sure. But I'm so excited to be here, and I'm glad I'm on the East Coast because I've had time to wake up a little bit, and it's a rainy day, but it's a good day.
Okay, well, it is a good day, but you know what? It's like 90 degrees outside in LA right now.
And
yeah. I know. I'm good. Welcome. And next we have Danielle from Baby Nuggets. Danielle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi there. Morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be back here on BabyLeague. Let's see, I have 3 girls, so even just this morning, the level of like emotional drama in the household was by like 7 a.m. was intense, but it's super fun and keeps me, as Erin was saying, on my toes for sure. So I have Haley, who's an 8.5, and I have Summer, who's about to be 6, and then I have little Ivy, who is 19 months old. So this is a big topic with being a Mommy and Me instructor. It's coming up a lot lately, so I'm really excited to chat it up with all of you guys today.
All right, well, we're going to have a really good conversation, and like I said, we're just going to jump right into the questions. I want us all to feel, whether you're watching at home, across the country, live or after the fact that we've recorded this, I just want everyone to feel like we are in a space together. Drink your coffee, drink your water. Let's be cash and just have a really productive discussion. And also, enter your questions because we do want your questions. So let's start with the first question. I got a question right here. And you know what, Dr. Marcy, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to direct this to you. Here's the question. If our child is vaccinated, what is the likelihood they will be affected by diseases like chickenpox, measles, etc.? That's a great question.
That is a great question. And vaccines are very effective in general. They're not 100% effective, and we all know that. And so much of it depends on if the disease is out in the community. The chances of getting measles in Los Angeles a year ago was extremely low, and this year obviously it got much higher. So what we can talk about is the effectiveness of the vaccine. So measles, for instance, if you've had 1 vaccine, 90% of those people are protected against measles. If you've had 2, it's more like 95 to 97% are protected. So that leaves 3 to 5% who've had their 2 vaccines who can still get the disease. Wow. It's similar with chickenpox. If there's more chickenpox out in the community, you're more likely to be at risk. The chickenpox vaccine also not 100% effective, but it does a pretty good job, but you can get it even if you've had the vaccine. Generally, if you've had the vaccine, if you get the disease, you'll get what we call an attenuated case, a lesser version of the case. Kids who get chickenpox after the vaccine don't get terribly high fevers. They're not itching for weeks. They just get a few pox, and it's not as bad. And as everybody knows, the flu vaccine this year, they do their best to match it up, and this year it didn't match very well, and it only was about 23% effective. So it helped, but it didn't help as much as we would have hoped.
You know what, if I could touch on that flu vaccine just a little bit, because I'm just going to volunteer some information. Me personally, my family, we do vaccinate our girls without question. We take them to the doctor. This is the vaccine you're getting today. That's what we do. But for whatever reason, and my husband is, a doctor, mind you, but for whatever reason, I've always been wary of the flu vaccine, and I don't know if it's because it's new or if it's because I'm paranoid as a mother. But Erin, I'm curious to hear if you've been wary about the flu vaccine as well.
That's actually the one vaccine that I've skipped over. I didn't take it when I was pregnant. I haven't given it to either of the boys, but I feel like if they were in maybe a daycare or if we were out a lot more and they were around a lot more kids or people, anything like that, I would consider it a lot more. But it was something I researched and I went back and forth. Do I want to give it to them? Do I not want to give it to them? Because they've gotten every single other vaccination. So it's like, why leave one out, some people might say. But I just felt like for us being at home as much as we are, and I don't feel like it's really that beneficial for them. And I talked to their pediatrician, and he said that he wanted to hear my thoughts on it, and I told him the same thing I just told you guys, and he said, I think you're making the right decision. So, I was already pretty set in my ways, but then to hear the confirmation that my pediatrician thinks that I'm going in the right direction as well was a good boost. And I just think, we're home a lot and we're not out that much, so I just felt like that was one that we could skip over. So I think a lot of people do go in that direction as well. I think that is one that people are more likely to not give themselves or their kids.
Well, you made me feel better at the very least. I'm going to hop on to our next question. This question is from Amy, and her question is, there is a mom in our class who believes in vaccinations for her child but wants to hold off until they are at least 5 years old. Is this common, and how do you handle the vaccination schedule later? Dr. Marcy.
Well, unfortunately, kids under 5 are very much at risk for many of the diseases. So some of the vaccines like Prevnar and Hib, which protect against meningitis, if you wait till 5, that you're too late. Basically, you're not protecting them at all. So that's and same with pertussis. Pertussis and Hib and Prevnar, those are the ones that we start at 2 months of age. And the reason we start at 2 months of age is that those are the things that are still honestly killing babies here in the United States. There are kids in the PICUs with meningitis, with pertussis, and also with influenza. And so those are the ones that we feel it's important to start early. So I would prefer people hold off on vaccines and vaccinate later rather than not vaccinate at all, but you are exposing your child to risk by putting them off.
Danielle.
Yeah.
You have kids of all different ages.
I do.
Did you delay anything when it came to vaccinations?
It's interesting you guys were talking about the flu vaccine because I did something different with each of my kids. So when Haley, my first, was born, just like what Erin was talking about, we were predominantly at home, and the exposure I felt like to other kids and people was much lower. When I had Summer and Haley was in preschool, my pediatrician, we had a different conversation because it was her first year in preschool, and that first year of preschool, they're basically sick the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a different conversation about that flu vaccine, and I actually did do the flu vaccine for Summer when she was, that 1 year old or at that time when Haley was in preschool. And then poor little Ivy, by the time she came around, it's like, oh my God, vaccinate this child, because literally, I think the first winter of her life, I don't think she was well for 7 months. So we were trying to do anything possible because we had elementary and preschool germs, and I work with kids, so that was a really interesting thing to see how the flu vaccine played out. Plus, the 1 year I didn't get it when I was pregnant with Ivy, and the girls and my husband got it. They all didn't get the flu, and I had the flu when I was pregnant. And that was the first year ever where I was like, I should get the flu vaccine.
Maybe I need to think about this.
So, yeah. But in terms of overall vaccinations, all my kids have been vaccinated, and the only time I really delay things is if I go in for their checkup and they are sick, if they have a virus or even a slight cold or they're at the tail end of it, because I just want to make sure that if they have a reaction, like a fever or anything, I know whether it's to treat it in terms of it's a reaction to the vaccination or do they have an ear infection. I wouldn't be able to tell. So I like to make sure their immune system is nice and strong when I give that vaccination, so I just feel more informed as a mom. I don't know if that's logical thinking or accurate, but I just that's where I've come from.
You know what, that's interesting you say that, and I'm glad that you brought that in the open for selfish personal reasons, actually, because my youngest daughter has been sick this last week, and she's due for her 3-year-old appointment next week, and she's going to be getting some vaccinations, I'm sure. Dr. Marcy, should I wait to give her the vaccination she's supposed to get at her next appointment because she's been sick? What are your thoughts?
The official recommendations are that being a little bit sick is not a contraindication to getting a vaccine. The recommendations are even a mild fever, you still can give it. If it's a high fever, you don't give the vaccine. Now, that said, a lot of parents would prefer to wait. So I always have the discussion with the parents. Some parents say, my daughter has a cold, can we still give the vaccine? They don't want to deal with coming back. And the answer is yes, you can, absolutely. But if you're like Danielle and you're worried about if there's a fever, I'm not going to be sure if there's an ear infection or whatever, it's reasonable to put it off. When people put things off, they tend to get behind, so that's a concern of mine. And I think that's why the Academy of Pediatrics doesn't want people doing that, because a lot of people, if they don't do it that one day, they're not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
But
that's true. That's true.
But I understand wanting to put it off, and a lot of our patients will do that. But I think we have fairly good follow-up with them, and we can make sure that they'll come back and get the vaccine at a later date.
That's interesting. That's very interesting, because us parents do forget. We have mom brain, right? It's always about the mom brain forgetting to reschedule.
And kids are always sick.
Yes.
They get sick all the time. So if you're waiting for them to be well, you'll never vaccinate. We see that a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, you know what's up. Oh, my. Okay, let's jump to another question now. We have a question from KJ. Here's KJ's question. My mom and aunts all had measles growing up, and it wasn't a big deal. I just don't want to pump so many toxins in my kid's body for something likely they won't get and isn't even that harmful. So she's saying her family members from past years did have measles. It didn't seem like it was a big deal back then for them to get it, and she's hesitant about pumping toxins for, her kids where, previous generations had this disease. Dr. Marcy, what's your response?
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in that question.
Yeah.
One of the issues is for people who live through measles, it can be not a big deal. However, there are people who don't live through the measles. So the statistics basically are that out of children who get the measles, 1 out of 20 of them will have pneumonia, and 1 or 2 out of 1,000 will die. So yes, lots of people got it as children and were fine, but a lot of people won't be fine if they get it. And one of the other reasons we vaccinate is to protect the people who cannot be vaccinated, like the children under the age of 1 and stuff like that. And if we have a lot of people who don't vaccinate, we can get outbreaks, as we've seen in the past few months. So that's that aspect of it. And the putting toxins into the body is the other issue. I wouldn't call any of it toxins. You're introducing antigens that your immune system can respond against. There are a few preservatives in there that are in such minuscule amounts. They're usually less than a baby would get by having formula. Things like aluminum and formaldehyde. There are trace tiny, tiny, tiny amounts, but it's less than you would get just by living your life usually. So I wouldn't call them toxins, and I don't think the vaccines themselves are dangerous, of course, or I wouldn't be giving them to my own children and to all my patients.
Right, and I mean, these are things that have been approved for years and years by the American Academy of Pediatrics, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot going on here. Now we're like getting into it, right? Regarding the toxins and the preservatives and so forth. Next question from Amy Roche, very fitting, perfect segue. Is it true that these vaccines can sometimes cause autism?
That's for me, I take it.
Yes,
The answer is there are no studies that show that. There was the discredited study by Dr. Wakefield from, ages ago, and that was fully discredited. There has only been anecdotal evidence, which when people have tried to show a true connection, it doesn't bear out. So, no, there has been, I think all scientists agree there's no evidence. Even doctors I know who are slower vaccinators here in Santa Monica, they acknowledge that there's no scientific evidence for it. So it's interesting that it has taken off as this idea, and obviously autism is on the rise, which is heartbreaking, and we don't know why that is, but nobody has been able to show that it's vaccine related. Okay.
Danielle, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. You run a Mommy and Me group. You've been doing this for years and years and years. I imagine that in your groups, this topic does sometimes come up. What guidance or what kind of discussions do you have with the moms in your group about this vaccinating issue and the potential for autism when that study was, discredited?
Yeah, and this has definitely come up multiple times over the years, and I tend to see it come up more often with moms that have little boys, who have boy babies. It's much less frequent that I get that question or that dialogue coming from moms with little girls, which obviously is reflective of kind of what we're seeing in terms of the population who are being diagnosed with autism. I usually go and kind of obviously open up the discussion, and kind of the whole point is to help people feel heard and understood. And it's so anxiety producing being a parent. I mean, you want to do so right by your child emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, you name it. The amount of pressure that we have to kind of produce this like healthy, happy, productive human being is so immense. So when you throw on there the possibility that we could potentially be doing something that causes this great harm, I think is paralyzing, and I think it's really overwhelming and scary. So I really encourage people to kind of stay off the internet, or to go to a resource that provides information that they connect with, whatever that information is, so they're not flooded, because it's so overwhelming. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I just kind of share my own personal story, which is the decision that we made to vaccinate our children kind of came from, like, let's just say the scientists got it wrong. Okay, let's just say, which I don't think they did, but let's just say. And there's a potential that the vaccines cause autism. So for us, what we looked at is, if we don't vaccinate, what could potentially happen? Well, there are multiple illnesses that could kill our children, right? And that is devastation. That's like not even discussable. And then in terms of if it potentially causes autism, it would be very difficult and very challenging. I've worked with that, with children diagnosed with autism for years. So, but our kids would be alive. So I know that's a very drastic way to look at it, but we kind of formulate our conversations of what are the risks and how do you kind of navigate through that. So it's definitely coming up a lot more now, which is, what do you do when your baby's under the age of 1 and other people aren't vaccinating, and then your baby's exposed before they can get that vaccination? That's the biggest thing right now that's coming up in group.
And that was, very, very prevalent in the Disneyland situation that happened back in December. That was the issue, was that measles started to spread, and it was the kids that were not able to get vaccinated, or, the kids that were maybe going through some kind of treatment, or were not able to get the shots because of their immune system. Those are the kids that were at risk, and those are the kids that outbreak affected. It's scary. It's scary, scary. Dr. Marcy, I just really quickly want to touch on the concept of herd immunity, because when, especially in Southern California, we have read that because of the large number of parents who are opting out of vaccinations, there has been a compromise in the herd immunity. Could you explain herd immunity to us all, just so that we're all on the same page and what exactly that means?
Sure. Herd immunity means that there are enough people vaccinated in your community that for those people who either cannot get vaccinated because they're too young, or they're undergoing chemotherapy, or they're immune suppressed for other reasons, or they're part of that 3 to 5% who got their 2 MMRs but it didn't work on them. If you've got herd immunity, there are enough people that are vaccinated, so about 90%. If 90% of the community is vaccinated, we consider the community to have herd immunity. I was actually surprised during the MMR outbreak. I looked up the vaccine rate at my kids' elementary school and was surprised to see it did not. It was 87%. So there was no herd immunity at my kids' elementary school, which surprised me.
Wow. And what happened? You're the pediatrician. You're the scientist. Did you go into panic?
No. I mean, because my kids are vaccinated, and the chances that they aren't covered is pretty slim. So, but it was just interesting to me. All these people, I didn't realize there were that many people in the community that are not vaccinating by choice.
That is interesting. All right, we have another question here from Meredith. And I want to apologize while I read the question on the side of my screen. Remember to enter your questions in the chat area so that we can answer them here. We've got, excellent experts to talk to. From Meredith, I know that you might not, here we go. I know that you might not know, but do kids have to get their shots for school? Or can we still fill out the form and send them to school if they haven't gotten their shots? Also, she does say that her kids her child hates getting shots, which I think is pretty universal. All children hate getting shots. So what is the situation with school? Do they have to get shots? And also, do you have any pointers as a pediatrician to maybe make that shot process a little bit more bearable, even though that's crazy to ask?
Right. Well, there are a few things. First of all, whether or not you have to get the vaccines for school depends on your state. Here in California, you can fill out a personal exemption form that now has to be signed by a doctor as of a year ago. But you don't have to say it's a religious exemption. It's just because of my personal beliefs, and it has to say that you've discussed it with your doctor. Some states it's very difficult not to get vaccinated, and in some states it's easier. So that's a state-by-state issue. As for kids hating to get shots, yeah, they do all hate it, and unfortunately they hurt. That's one of the reasons when people want to spread out the vaccines, I say I personally think it's kinder to do 3 at once rather than coming back every few weeks to get another one. That seems kind of harsh to me, but it's up to people how they want to do it. Also, when people want to put it off till they're 5, or they want to put them off till they're teenagers, the older a kid gets, the harder it is. And they can argue with you, and it's easier to do when they're little.
They get stronger.
Yeah, there's not much you can do to make it hurt less. A patient of mine had a thing recently, a thing called a buzzy bee, that actually was a vibrating thing that went on the arm, and it vibrated, and there was some ice, and so I want to look further into it because the kids said that it really didn't hurt, so I thought that was interesting.
Oh, it was a device that they put on the arm to distract the kids?
It was just like a thing that vibrated, and I can see how that would work, but it's called the buzzy bee. I'm not affiliated with it.
Mental note.
I have never seen it before.
If you are aware of the buzzy bee and you're watching, please add a comment and tell us what the heck that is and how it works for you. Erin, have you heard of the buzzy bee?
No, and I've heard of a lot of things. I don't have buzzy bee, but I have something I like to call Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and an iPhone, and that does wonders.
Oh, yeah.
Look at
this, right?
And then they get poked 3 times.
That works too.
Feed them some animal crackers. If you got to use chocolate, give them some chocolate, whatever they like.
Exactly.
And a lollipop. They're easy to distract. The younger they are, they're easier to distract. My 3-year-old, his 3-year checkup was not the best, and I felt like a terrible mom. And they're like, please, we don't even hear them crying. We hear it every day. But as a parent, you want your kid to just take the shots and be fine with it. But reality is, no 3-year-old is going to be like, oh, that was great. That didn't even hurt. Right. It's going to hurt, but you have to outweigh the 3 minutes to my 1-year-old cries for 30 seconds. You have to realize it's not going to be forever that they're in pain, and the vaccinations are going to help them out. So do some special treats and tricks and stuff like that, and that's my advice to people.
It's true. I am all about the lollipops, and I am dreading my 3-year-old's upcoming appointment because she is Danielle, you said you had drama queens. Danielle, I got a 3-year-old drama queen.
Yeah, the three-nagers.
The screamagers, the three-nagers. That girl, when she gets her shots next week, I tell you, it's like lollipop, lollipop, here, have fun.
Yeah.
The other thing I would recommend is not getting bogged down in negotiating with the child. Some parents will keep saying, can you come back? She's not ready. And it ends up dragging 20 minutes of tears. Whereas if I just say, hold them like iron, it takes 10 seconds and it's over. And then they're going to end up with the shot anyway, and if you can do it quickly, it's easier on everybody.
Yeah, that's if I can jump in on that one, as a clinician who specializes with kids and babies, that it's all about the anticipation. It's all about anticipation anxiety. So with your 3-year-old, it's kind of having that dialogue, or my older kids, it's kind of like the second the shot is done, all that worry goes away. So if we come back next week, you get to worry for another 7 days. How you're feeling right at this moment. Do you want to feel like this for another 7 days, or do you want to be done in 3 seconds? So we talk about the mound of anxiety, and the worry is like done. And so we do this big alligator snap. And I'm not a big fan of bribery, but when it comes to Shot Man, my kids go to the Disney store after. I'm not going to lie. Like, that is their thing. My 6-year-old daughter is the one you have to chase around the doctor's office and pin her down to get her shots. But the second it's over, she's fine. So you can't delay it. You want to get it over with, because otherwise you're exposing their brain to more anxiety and more overwhelm. Just get it over with, and then everyone can move on. But when
I am loving this group. You're absolutely okay. On the count of 3, I want us all to do a big alligator snap. 1, 2, 3, snap. The alligator. I'm going to remember that next week. The alligator snap. All right. I do want to. I want to go to another question, because the questions are coming in a steady stream here. I'm loving it. From Epodling. Oh my gosh, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Epoddle.
Oh, it's Amy from Epodle.
Amy from Epodle. Perfect.
That's my guess. I'm guessing.
Oh,
I think so,
Okay. Well, Amy says, great topic. She wants to know, and Dr. Marcy, you can speak to this. At what point in the normal vaccination schedule is my baby pretty well protected against these diseases? Should I be worried about him playing with unvaccinated kids at any given point?
That's an interesting question. In general, I say if you're staying on the schedule, your kids are as vaccinated or as protected as they can be. And I would not be concerned about playing with unvaccinated kids, unless if there's a measles outbreak and your child has not had their first one, I might think a little bit about it. But in general, still, thank God, the risks are fairly low. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Hopefully after the first, the reason we do so many of them, and we end up doing 5 DTaps, for instance, is that with each successive one, we're capturing more of the population and getting a better response. So you get some immune response after the first one. It's not as great as it would be, but it's the best we can do. And so I would not worry about playing with unvaccinated kids at all.
That's good to know. I do want to ask the audience, this is a great discussion, and just a reminder, keep putting in your questions. I'm loving the information and the support we're getting here. I do want to ask, this is this particular group, Amy, Danielle, Dr. Marcy, we are all pro-vaccinations. I want to find out from whoever's watching out there, is there anyone that is really against vaccinations and you're just throwing tomatoes at the screen and wanting us all to go away? Please, we do want to know. We do want this to be a well-rounded discussion, and we want to know why you might be against vaccinations, or why you perhaps opted to delay the vaccination schedule that that might differ from what your pediatrician recommends. We do want to find out about those POVs as well. Here's a question. I usually go to Dr. Marcy on the first question because she's our resident ped here today, but I'm going to ask Erin. Put you on the spot here. We're getting a little hot topic-y. We're going to go political. Da-da-da-da, Erin. Do you think the government should mandate vaccines? I think parents should have the right to choose, but I also think schools and public play places should also have the right to choose to not let unvaccinated kids in. What are your thoughts as a mom?
I mean, obviously, we vaccinate for a reason, and I would prefer to not have my kids around kids who were not vaccinated, because the risk is there, and I know that the percentage of them getting that is very small, but I tend to have terrible luck, and I will be that 1%, 2%, 3%, or 1 in a million. It always seems to be like that when you're a parent, like, oh, my kid will be the one kid to break their arm, and it just happens like that sometimes. And it's not like you can look at a kid and say they're not vaccinated. So say we go to Chick-fil-A and there's 5 kids playing in there with my kids. I can't say, okay, which one is the one that's not vaccinated? I don't know that. And if I did know that, would I say you can't play with them? No. Do I wish that all kids were vaccinated? Yes. I just feel like, I mean, the research is out there, and I went with vaccinating for a reason. I kind of understand why some people don't, and I kind of don't. I mean, I respect their decision, but do I wish that all kids were vaccinated and I could feel more confident with letting my kids play with whoever and decrease the risk even more? I do. But should it be mandatory? I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say, because I do want that option to be there, but at the same time, I'm worried about my kids at the same time. So I don't know.
It is. It's really tough. And it's like, you know, I can only speak from personal experience, but I think it's universally known that being a mom, a dad, I mean, being a parent, you're always navigating that. What's the least risk? What's the better reward? I mean, it is so, so difficult, and your opinion and your perspective changes all the time. Danielle, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm. Laying it
on you. Boom, alligator snap. You, just to refresh the memory of anyone who may have tuned in, you lead a mommy group, and you've been doing this for years and years and years. And I got to ask you, in the parenting community, wherever you may live, and especially online in the parenting community, we're all very sensitive and extra conscious, I think, in this day and age, to be supportive of one another as parents, as moms, as dads, as caregivers. We want to support each other's choices. However, in a tricky situation where, you know, on the topic of vaccinations, when it is sometimes a life or death experience, a life or death scenario regarding our kids, should we be supportive emotionally of those who opt out of the health standard of vaccinating our kids? I mean, should we be putting pressure on some of these parents, like, wait a minute here, this is the health of our children, this is the health of our community. Are we being too supportive for something that's dangerous?
That's such an interesting question and kind of discussion that you're bringing up in a really unique way that I have to be honest, Jill, like, I don't think I've had anyone else kind of bring it up in that capacity. So I certainly appreciate those sentiments. And I think, you know, in my Mommy and Me groups and all the years of working with, you know, parents and babies, it is all about creating a supportive environment, because there is like this piece of like mommy wars, like this strong opinion of I'm doing it better than you, or you're not doing this. And that all comes from our own places of insecurity, right? That judgment of the other, because it's a fear of what if I'm doing the wrong thing, because of this piece of the risk and the reward. Am I making the right choice and the right decision? So I think that a lot of our harsh responses to others, like if an individual believes in non-vaccination, their response to those that vaccinate can be very harsh and strong, because again, I think, and again, as a clinician, as a psychotherapist, this is where my response comes from, is that place of like the fear of like, what if I'm making the wrong decision? Because we all have that inside, and the vice versa. I am vaccinating my kids, and then we feel really strongly about you should vaccinate, because again, it comes from that place of like, what if I'm doing the wrong thing? So how do we manage our own insecurities as parents, but also allow other people to make their own choices? And then this added piece, which is, this is now a medical component. This isn't whether, like, how do you introduce solids, right? Or are you sleep training or not sleep training, right? This is about medical health. So I think that it's a balance. I think we need to honor and respect other people's right to make choices for their children. But I also think we have to look at, does their choice put other children at risk. So whether you sleep train or don't sleep train, that doesn't put anybody else at risk, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Just yourself, because you're going to go clinically and stuff. That's a whole other thing. Okay. Right, but this medical piece. So I think that's a really interesting thing to bring up. I'd love to hear, from other people, their thoughts on it. But because it's medical, I think it does change that level of support. But I think it comes from these feelings of insecurity.
Yeah, well said. Hey, girl, you handled it. Well said. Okay, Danielle. Thank you. I really do. I appreciate the perspective, and we appreciate the perspective and all the questions that we're getting. We're getting a load of questions, I'm being told, so thank you for that. We're going to try and get to all of them. Really quickly, though, I got to give a big shout-out to Rita. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Rita wrote in and told us what the heck that buzzy bee thing is, and here's what she said. The buzzy bee is a little thing you put in front of the shot, and it has little cards that keeps kids busy while they're getting their shot. So Rita, you did your research for us, and we appreciate that here at BabyLeague. Mommy and me.
That is great, but I think that's different because I saw the thing that my patient had, and it was an actual device that vibrated that was put on the site where the shot was going to be given.
I tell you, these gadgets these days.
I know.
It's amazing.
What's the price on that?
How did we ever grow up as children without these gadgets? I have no idea.
How did I ever get shots without the buzzy bee?
I have no idea. I know. Oh my goodness. Okay, as I said, we do have a lot of questions. The next question from Aphrodite. Is it okay for children with allergies to be vaccinated? Dr. Marcy, this is a question for you.
In general, yes. There's a few, if your child has a severe egg allergy, and I mean severe, like they really can't have it, not just the lab results showed a little bit of an egg allergy, but like breaks into hives, anaphylaxis type things, then I would be concerned about the flu vaccine and the MMR and some others. But in general, allergies don't make much of a difference, and yes, you can get vaccinated.
Good to know. Good to know. Out of curiosity, Erin, Danielle, do any of your kids have allergies?
No, none that we know of yet. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple of things out there they've never had before, and it could present itself later, but not any of that we know of right now. So
I was curious because I know that both of you vaccinate. I was curious.
Yeah, no, my kids have a lot of environmental allergies, which is why if we choose to do the flu vaccine each year, they can't get the mist because because they are like 2 weeks after like hay fever. I mean, because they just have the environmental allergies. So that's the only one in our experience that we've had to make a different choice on in relation to their environmental allergies. And I don't know if that's accurate or inaccurate. That's just based on seeing their response.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. Like I said, I was just curious. We have a question here from, so excuse me as I bend down to read my screen. I need glasses, you guys. It's another show. We need glasses. From Swap Family. Here we go. Thank you for weighing in, Swap Family. We don't vaccinate at all. We weighed the risks and the benefits and decided not to vaccinate. The ingredients in the vaccines and the likelihood that the illnesses would be damaging or fatal. Let me see. The risks for most of these diseases was so low in the U.S. as well. So they decided not to vaccinate because the risk of diseases was so low. Dr. Marcy, any thoughts?
I understand parents making that decision. Of course, the reason the risks are low is because we vaccinate, and when people stop vaccinating, we start getting outbreaks of things like measles. When I have patients who choose not to vaccinate, I always try to have the conversation with them that I want you to really understand that your child might get these diseases, and you have to be aware that your child might get meningitis, your child might get measles and be in the hospital, and you have to think about that. And if that happened, would you still think, I'm still glad I didn't vaccinate? And some people say, yes, I would. A lot of people are not vaccinating really because they just think there's no chance of it. And some people think, why are we blocking the natural process? So that's one of the things I like to talk to patients about. And the other thing is, when we were talking about the government mandating, which I don't think you should mandate, but I think it should be a little more difficult to decide not to vaccinate because it's so easy so many places. And if you really had to go through a lot of paperwork and really do it, I think a lot of people would say, I'll just do it. It's easier. But if you really are, philosophically against it, I don't think it should be mandated, but I mean, you have to really get that it is a true risk, and we might be bringing these diseases back.
Right. Another question from Lindsay Lou and Baby 2. Oh, how cute is that? A side note, how cute is that? Lindsay Lou and Baby 2 asks, why can you not just get a tetanus shot anymore? Why is it now a DTaP shot? Dr. Marcy, for you.
Well, there still exists. For years, there was a tetanus with diphtheria in it. That's the D of the DTaP and the Tdap. The diphtheria, there's some reason that having the diphtheria in the shot makes the tetanus work better. So any time you go to the hospital and somebody's got a dirty cut and they give them a tetanus shot, it always had the diphtheria in it. Because pertussis has had a resurgence, and there's a lot of it here in California and in other states, that's why they've added the pertussis back in. I believe that TD is still available. Our practice, we're not carrying it because most people don't want it and they want the extra protection, but I believe the TD is still available. I might be mistaken on that, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Interesting. Okay, we have another question from Jessica Mika. She says, I have a question. The clinic my son goes to, he is 3 months, it's a new clinic and they have yet to get their vaccines in. He hasn't gotten any other than the ones he hasn't gotten any other vaccines than the one he got in the hospital. Is this a bad thing?
I would prefer, I mean, they're supposed to start getting vaccinated at 2 months, so it would be good if the baby could be vaccinated somewhere else. I would hope that the clinic would be able to make some sort of alternative arrangements or something. And are we talking that it's coming in this week, or is it going to be another month or two? If it's going to be a long time, I would try to go elsewhere to get the vaccines. Because as I say, the Hib, Prevnar, and pertussis, those are the things that are very dangerous to the small babies, and that's why we start so early.
Okay, could you just for the sake, repeat those three that are most important for the small baby?
Hib and Prevnar, those both protect against meningitis, and the DTaP, which has pertussis in it. That's the one that we're most concerned about in the little ones.
And pertussis just is whooping cough.
Whooping cough, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The whooping cough.
Yes.
Another question from Melody. Do you think if there was a vaccination against autism, parents would get it? Now I'm going to save Dr. Marcy to the end. I'm curious. Erin, you first, and then Danielle. If there was a vaccination against autism, would you get it?
I think that's kind of like saying if there was a vaccination for Down syndrome. Like it's kind of like if you're going to have autism, you're going to have autism, I feel like. And I think, Danielle, you were saying it earlier that it's like more common in boys now, and I do have 2 boys. So it's something that I've thought about. I feel like it maybe weighed on me a little bit more because it's really controversial now, and it's a lot of people are talking about it. And I feel like, I almost hate to say this, but I do feel like it's kind of like some people just don't vaccinate now because it's the popular thing to do, or it's like, people want to be as natural as they can. And I'm not saying that there's people out there, everybody that's not vaccinating is just doing it because it's trendy, but I do think there are people out there who are really just making an uninformed decision and they don't vaccinate because maybe their best friend didn't vaccinate their kids and they're just like, okay, I'm going to do this too. I think that autism is not the worst thing to have to live with. I know multiple people who have autism and are a million times smarter than I will ever be in my life. Just like they have those things that they are, my mother-in-law, her stepson, he's amazing. He's a genius, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Does he have difficulties and stuff like that? Yes, but he can go out, he can work, he can go to school himself, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't think that there would ever be a vaccination for anything like that. I'm sure some people would get it, but I don't think it's something that's life-threatening, whereas if your kid gets measles or some type of other thing from not vaccinating, they could die from that. You're not going to die from autism, so.
Interesting, and this a fascinating perspective, because I want to remind everyone, Erin is a vaccinator. I mean, this is what you said in the beginning at the very top. You said, well, I take my kids to get their vaccination shots exactly when they're supposed to get them, so that's a fascinating perspective. Thank you for that. Danielle, if there was a vaccination against autism, would you opt for it?
Here's the thing, right? There's this huge increase in the diagnosis of autism. And if you look back into the 1980s, if you walked into an elementary school classroom, and I might be missing some of the numbers, so don't quote me, but a good handful of boys in every single classroom were being treated and medicated for ADHD. It was a huge thing in the 80s, diagnosis after diagnosis after diagnosis. And it's really interesting now with the increase in diagnosis of autism, the diagnosis of ADHD in the classroom seems to be less. So it's just, as a clinician, it's just an interesting thing to kind of look at outside of vaccinations, like, what's going on? But this piece is, right, and where this question comes from is, what can we do? Like, why is there such a huge increase, and how do we protect our children? Just like we're talking about protecting our children from these medical, diseases, how do we protect them from this piece that seems to kind of change in their brain and no one can really understand why? So if there was a vaccination that did vaccinate against autism, I think a lot of parents, and I could be inaccurate in saying this, so I'm just kind of saying it overall, that have children that struggle with the more severe autism where they are unable to function,
right,
and it is such a severe impairment, I'm pretty sure those parents would have said, yes, please. But again, I could be inaccurate in that. So I think if the vaccine was really accurate, I think a lot of people would really consider it. I have to tell you, when I'm with these moms and babies, and the babies are so young, especially with the boys, the moms are really scared.
Wow.
Because we don't understand why it's happening. So it creates such a fear.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'd be, I would love to see that come up as a problem, a vaccination for autism. What a great thing for us to have to kind of figure out. I would love that.
Wow. Dr. Marcy, since I know nothing about medicine, I'm curious your take. Is this something that is even medically possible for the future?
I would think it's not, because I think most scientific evidence points towards it being a genetic thing, that it's something you either have or you don't have. If the science showed that it had an infectious cause and it could be vaccinated against, and the science backed it up, I would say great. I think there are a lot of people who still wouldn't do it. They just don't agree with vaccinating, period. But I think it would be. I think it would be a great thing if we had it. And I think what Danielle was saying about the ADHD, I think a lot of it is, of the increase in autism, is because of increase of diagnosis. But I don't think that's everything. I think there is an actual increase above and beyond that, and we don't know why. And I'm hoping we find an answer. I don't think that answer is going to be vaccines, though.
Right. Very quickly, Dr. Marcy, a question from Addie here. My mom and I get sick when we get the flu shot. She wants to know why that happens. If you could just briefly describe why that happens.
Well, any vaccine, it causes an immune response, and pretty much any vaccine will have, as a possible side effect, flu-like symptoms. You can get a little bit of a headache, low fever, achiness. So it's just the immune system responding. It's not getting the flu. I hear from a lot of people, every time I get the flu shot, I get the flu right afterwards. You can't get the flu from the shot or from the mist, but it's just a side effect of the vaccine. You can get a little bit of illness afterwards. A lot of people don't realize what the flu is. They say, I get the flu shot and those are the years I get sick. It only protects against influenza, which is that thing that's brutal to get. It's the high fever, achiness. I got it myself this year despite having gotten the flu vaccine. And you feel miserable and you're down for a week. And so it's different from just getting a really bad cold. So that's all it protects against, but it's a pretty big thing. And it still kills thousands of people every year here in the United States.
It does. Got it. Last question of the day. Ooh, we are nearing up on an hour here. It's been a great chat, ladies, everyone watching. Thank you for joining us. Last question from the Swap family. Is it true, and this is for Dr. Marcy, as it is a medical question, is it true that the combined vaccines, such as DTaP, are the most likely to be the cause of vaccine injury?
Well, if you're talking vaccine injury, something like autism, I don't think that's a thing. So if we're talking side effects, DTaP, I don't even think of that so much as a combination vaccine because it's not offered as separate things. We do have actual combination vaccines, which have DTaP and Hib and polio in them in one shot. It is my understanding, and all the research I've read on it, is that the combination vaccines, you're not more likely to have a reaction from that as you would be from the individual vaccines. So I'm a fan of the combination vaccines. We've actually started using one that combines the MMR and the chickenpox, the varicella vaccine, into one. And oddly enough, these are two vaccines that sting and the kids cry more with them. The combination vaccine doesn't seem to hurt as much, which I don't understand, but it seems, all the nurses in our office say the same thing. It doesn't seem to bother the kids as much so I like the combination vaccines, and absolutely I think they're safe as giving the individual ones. And I like to minimize poking the kids as many times as I can.
Right. You mean you don't like the bloody murder screams?
I don't like that. I like to be kind to them.
Pediatricians are kind to people, whether we all think so or not. I'm just going to put it on the record. Pediatricians are kind people. Ladies, this has been, I just thank you for joining us. I thank all of you for joining us. This has been really, I think, informative. Dr. Marcy, insightful, supportive. Danielle and Erin, it's been a great chat. And I am being told via the comments here that we will be doing this chat again here on Baby League's Mommy and Me. So I'm looking forward to that. And I also want to let anyone watching know that if you are anti-vaccine, please let us know if you would like to be a panelist for the next time we do this chat, because we are going to be discussing this again. The subject is ongoing, always online in the parenting community, and we are going to be discussing this again. So please, if you're anti-vaccine, let us know, and let us know if you would like to be a panelist so that you can join us next time. I would like to find out, as we wrap up, where everyone watching can find our esteemed and fabulous, if I may say, panelists. Erin, please let us know who you are, where you are, and where everyone can find you so that they can connect with you after this chat.
Well, I'm Erin from Erin and Baby. I also have a daily vlog channel. My YouTube is on hold right now because my laptop broke. So I have a lender and I can do this, but as far as editing goes, it's forcing me to take a break, which has been nice. But I do mommy videos, tags. It's a big old smorgasbord on my Erin and Baby. And then I have Everyday Erin, which is daily vlog, might go to weekly vlog. But if you like the more vlog style videos, you can check me out over there. And then I am also on Twitter and Instagram as @ErinPagliaro, and on Facebook as Erin and Baby.
And refresh us the ages of your kids.
Oh, 3 and 1. Ryan is 3 and Nolan just turned 1 last month.
Perfect. Okay, Danielle, let us know where we can find you.
Yes, so if you go to babynuggetswithdanielle.com, you can connect with me through an email there for psychotherapy. I do tons of Skype consultations for parents with questions about sleep, feeding, emotional development, attachment, I mean, you name it. Like the topics that I cover in Mommy and Me, people who can't come to my groups, I sometimes do weekly or monthly. I've even had several people hop in the same house at the same time and do some Skype stuff with them. I teach Baby Nuggets with Danielle, Mommy and Me at the Pump Connection in Sherman Oaks. And then I have a private practice in Beverly Hills and Encino where I work with kids, adolescents, and families. So, and I'm at Baby Nuggets on Twitter and Baby Nuggets with Danielle on Facebook. Whew, that was like a list. Okay,
Baby Nuggets, because nuggets are, little babies are little nuggets. And refresh our memory, how old are your kids?
I have a 1.5-year-old, just about to be 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
Awesome. And Dr. Marcy, where can we find you?
I am at 10th Street Pediatrics in Santa Monica, and you can find me at 10thstreetpeds.com.
Perfect. Well, like I said, this has been a fascinating chat. I thank all of you, Erin, Danielle, Dr. Marcy. You guys have been incredible. We had a ton of questions thrown at us. I appreciate everyone who loaded in their questions on the page. This is the, meat and potatoes, if you will, of this kind of hangout. We want Baby League's Mommy and Me to be an online Mommy and Me supportive resource for discussion and opinions and support, and hey, fiery debate too, if that's where it goes. But we're kind of all in this together as moms, and that's what we want it to be, and we depend on you to weigh in and help each other help ourselves navigate this journey of parenthood. Our very next chat is going to be not next Saturday, but the following Saturday. It's going to be on March 28th. Oh my gosh, it's going to be all about sleep. Sleep. I'm ready to close my eyes right now because I did not sleep very much last night. Yeah, nap, but how about we take a nap after this?
I know, the kids and my husband are out. I'm like, I might go upstairs and nap for a little bit. So
oh my gosh. Yes, next time, March 28th, you can join us at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We're going to be talking about sleep with Jenny June. And if anyone knows Jenny June, you know that she is incredible. She has about 100 kids. I'm just kidding. She doesn't have 100 kids. But she's an experienced mother, and she is, I would dare say, one of the people you want to talk to about getting sleep. So she's really helpful. We can't wait to see you then. I'm Jill Simonian once again. I'm the moderator for this fun group. Since you all got to say your personal blogs, I'm going to say mine. Yeah. You can find me at thefabmom.com. And contrary to what the URL leads you to believe, fab means focused after baby, fun after baby, funny after baby, and trying to stay as close to fabulous as possible after baby. So it's kind of an acronym of sorts, but you can find me there, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Jill Simonian on Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe to BabyLeague, and we will see you all next time on March 28th, as I look at the calendar, right? Yes. Yes. March 28th. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Dr. Marcy.
Thank you,
Everybody
Jill.
have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. This was great.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
bye.
See you next time.